We're back. We are back. The community
Where
is
did we go,
back
you
together.
ask? We didn't go anywhere. We just, paused the time for a little bit.
Cleaned up the board.
Cleaned up the board, if you recognize. We're pretty much moving along here. This is our third stage after introductions and setting the rules. We're basically at the stage of getting the contestants, filling in the buckets, per se, that are going to fill in the brackets, which will be the competition, the tournament to list mankind's greatest single achievement addition to the world as it were.
So we have already covered a lot of the perennial favorites in this tournament. Fire, will, language. In the last segment that we did, we're gonna hone down. We're gonna hone down. Start focusing.
Pare it down, yeah.
Pare it down.
But we're still spitballing. We're still brainstorming here. So don't worry, people. If you don't see things that you believe are out there, have a little
wait
faith.
Wait for it.
Zang. So, and you might get a slow clap here or there if we're really fucking interested. But between you, me, and the wall, Eddie, we've already agreed that, some of the winners, certainly last year's winners and a couple winners from previous eons, are on the board already. But there's going to be some other things that changed the way the world gets done. Changed the way that business gets done, changed the way that humans operated.
Yeah,
that would change
in almost an intangible way.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
There's certain figures that popped up that you can't really quite put your finger on it, but they changed the game. They changed how the game is played. They changed the rules, and they changed tons and tons of people, and influence their dates, their lives to this day, heavily, right?
Right. So we're thinking about paradigm shifts and influencers, things that really tectonically rocked the world. Could it be Freud and Nietzsche? Could it be Jesus Christ? These are humans, or man, but it could also be advents of that, like religion, monotheistic religions, or, the philosophy, existentialism, things of that nature.
Maybe it's just the idea of culture.
Well, the culture, and giving people an awareness of themselves that they didn't have beforehand, because we're all just learning this as we go. And certainly, years and years ago, people didn't have the same information, either about their cellular self, their biological self, their metaphysical self, all of that stuff. But it had to change. Things had to evolve. They had to adapt. Not just with technologies or inventions, not just with discoveries of new worlds or new organisms. Certainly, I think we're going to spend this next portion of the programming discussing
tectonic paradigm shifts.
And a paradigm is a typical example or pattern of something, a model, basically. So, humans are the greatest copycats there are. They all just kind of follow something, and then you can be an early adopter to people who change.
An early adopter.
And or you can be a change resistor and not move forward. Yeah, so certainly people like we are right now being part of a paradigm shift, which is the podcast itself. Eddie and myself have both been into podcasting or doing podcasting for almost a decade now. So maybe we are early adopters. Before they had an app on your iPhone, plenty of people podcasting. But basically, it's just a long form.
Listen, people just
radio
bullshit.
Interform. Yeah, it's just a lot of hot air. It's just we talk whatever fucking bullshit we want.
But although I know now it is for you, when I'm listening to a podcast that's engaging, I'm constantly thinking I'm there. What about this? What about that? Oh, that's a cool point. I've never thought about that. So hopefully that's what we're bringing to you. If we're not, then it doesn't really matter to us. I think we're enjoying ourselves right now,
right?
In sorting out all the influences of the world and what we've gone to get to here, which should just absolutely fascinate you, right?
And this is some take a moment to start thinking about it, because all of the things we're talking about, we take for granted on a daily basis, and that's how we got here. Like radio waves. I think radio we could put up on this list as a big paradigm shift. I mean, once they figured out how to send signals, there was no turning back, and it went with the telephone and all the rest of the stuff.
It might end up in the invention bracket when it's all said and done, but
right.
It's definitely a paradigm shift knowing like that had to happen before the internet. It's the baseline of
right.
a lot of what we're doing right now. So
if we barely cover this stuff, that's too bad because we'll come back to it. We can go radio, TV, internet, and perhaps that wasn't the direction we wanted this particular conversation to go, but that's what we're at, right? And internet goes to podcast. So here we're talking about a paradigm shift this way. We've already talked about the original TV, which was the fireplace, which we've got over here to my left. So those are all paradigm shifts. When we decided that we had fire, we could use fire to do it whatever way we wanted. And when they learned how to harness fire for a combustion engine, that's different, et cetera, et cetera. So anyhow, this is one version of a paradigm shift, I would imagine.
Now, what's most important out of that is the further conversation when the seating really gets involved. But what is the radio and more important TV? I don't know. Moving pictures, or the radio kind of kicked off the whole wave thing and the communication thing in the first place. But
right.
We don't need to get involved in that right now. But we should bring up this item at the beginning, which is probably top seed of the paradigm shifters: God, Jesus, religion.
Did God create man, or did man create God?
Very good question. I don't like God-o, like being in it, because he either created everything, he's going to trump everything. It's Jesus, like God in that is like, to me, saying the Big Bang should be in this. Or
paradigm shifts from heathens to Christians or what have you, and the fact that people take great, humanity suffered from religion probably as much as its benefit for it. But religion, think about this. Heathens and pagans back in the day, they had their own ideas. Certainly, the Greeks and Romans used the stars, which we talked about somewhere. Navigating stars, and they created whole fantasies about that with Greek gods. And Mars is a planet, and it's also the god of war, etc. So those kind of things all go back to religions, giving more importance to our life, or explaining the unknown. I mean, and then that came versus something like science, which was at odds with God's tool to this day, right? And science is too vague, but we'll get into
probably
this.
the same thing as religion's a little too vague,
right?
A little too macro.
But the point is we went from pagans to religion, and now we're going to science.
Well, you can make an argument that pagans had their religion of whatever, like
right.
Worshipping a tree.
And science is a religion as well. So, at some level, and then there's Star Wars, because Star Wars is a biblical
space travel
all at once.
Definitely.
And it combines stars and religion.
Can we
Star
put
Wars.
things up there that we haven't really fully like space travel? We're not really...
Whitey is on the moon. I think space travel is big time. So that especially when people are to this day trying to figure out how to migrate man to other planets, interstellar.
The problem with space travel, it doesn't affect a lot of people, though. A lot of people haven't been in outer space.
Well, space travel affected all of the 1960s and 70s. Before we were born, this was the biggest thing since sliced bread, putting Whitey on the moon. And
I think
Russia,
I don't know.
It was tied, it was intertwined with the Cold War.
It might have been a delusional conversation. I don't know. I think this one I'm going to have a hard time seating. Like, it needs to be on the wall for sure. Like,
it's just pure technology, but that's inventions and stuff, like being able to put something into orbit and bring it back.
Super
space
cool.
Travel is like a satellite. I mean, Jesus.
Satellite, yeah, for sure. That affects everyone on a day-to-day basis.
But I mean, paradigm shift more back to we move the progression of mankind. Like nowadays, it's a given that we don't smoke cigarettes anymore. Cigarettes are bad. But the paradigm shift would have been 70 years ago. Every place that you ever went,
I love those cool commercials of the guy playing tennis.
Yeah, he's got a cigarette. Yeah,
oh yeah,
Newport's alive with pleasure. Nowadays, you have TV commercials paid for by big tobacco companies that explain the dangers of secondhand smoke to babies 3 floors away.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. One thing that people like to do, they like to alter their mind.
Right.
And what are the substances? So there's going to be very controversial substances that we have to put on the list right now.
Okay, substances.
I'm going to start off by mushrooms, right?
Right.
Like some people are like hot. Like now it's like you guys out there watching a podcast. You're gonna have the two. Oh, there's a couple druggies like doing a podcast. Man. Yeah, look at the hippies. I'm not. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this attire. Like,
and look at this attire. Who do you think's on drugs between me and him? Don Johnson
but
over here.
There's no doubt
Captain Chaos.
that it's changed. Well, it's very controversial. I'm not like we're here to be unbiased. We don't pick teams. We pick the teams that go in here based on their merits. There is a very large school that says psychedelics, mushrooms were like, even actually a lot of people say that was the sole discovery that man had to alter the way they look at the world.
If you believe in out of Africa and mankind came from sub-Saharan Africa, then mankind used to be ape, and we, as apes, started foraging, and then when you got to a magic mushroom, your synapses exploded. And that was passed on to your next generation, cellular level, and cellular level, and cellular level. And I'm not saying that humans constantly had to take mushrooms for mind expansion in order to prove, but there is a theory out there that if you believe in evolution, how did man get to be so smart so quickly?
Well, the way the one guy is listening to, the way he described is, we are hunters and gatherers, definitely for a segment of this whole evolutionary process. And as we were hunting animals, when we were tracking them down, one of the primary ways that we tracked them down was their dung. And what's going to happen is you're going to find dung, and you're going to be like, dang, there's these little fungal little things,
right,
and you're going to get zanged off of it, right? And
dung, dang, zang.
In microdoses, it's said to like be able to like just give you a little bit more clarity. Steve Jobs, like, he admitted that he took LSD, right?
Lysergic something.
And so like we have all kind of technologies that even today that at least people, whether it's true or not, at least people say that it has influence on them. So
right.
I think mushrooms is definitely has to at least be in there. Like, it's going to be highly debated where that belongs on the list, but
I mean, substances could be a list in of itself. I mean, I think the primary substance in humankind is alcohol or fermentation.
At least in the West, that's a nice way to put. Like, we're not drug addicts and stuff. Fermentation, I like that word.
Fermentation
gives us some credibility,
right?
Credence. The fermentation goes off into
alcohol has had a huge effect on mankind, whether it's a deleterious effect or not. Just look at my face and answer the question for yourself. Now, we move on. Alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, opiates. Now they manufacture synthetic opiates, and there's a mass epidemic of humans that are dying, kids that can't handle opiates, and they're abusing it.
But that's a newer age problem. This alcohol, I actually like just that category.
Opiates
fermentation is a powerful category.
Why do you think Afghanistan's a big deal?
I just want to finish up one more thing on fermentation before we go to opiates. Fermentation definitely has alcohol, which is a major impact, especially in the Western world. But also, know what else comes in fermentation? Probiotics. Kombucha, but more well known probably sauerkraut. What's that? The Asian kimchi,
pickling.
Where we're going to ferment this vegetable. There's going to be these little tiny microorganisms that like flourish and like go in there, and like it's like basically a whole world of little microbes. And then you're going to eat that stuff, and then it's going to go into like your shit tube, and like they're going to either help you out or they're going to fuck
YouTube right here.
They're going to either help you out or they'll probably make you sick. But there's a whole world. Like, you can have a 60 tournament.
Right, but that goes to science, because it's like they only learn through experimentation which one's good and which one's bad through fermentation.
But fermentation is the key.
Fermentation is the key.
I'm really...
He's impressed that I can spell.
It goes
I put it right
off into a lot of little shoots, so I really like that.
Right. I mean, we talked about fermentation. Something like...
Alcohol's a big player for fermentation.
You want to talk about a paradigm shift? How about penicillin? Or any other kind of antibiotic, or because we talked about probiotics, so we can get into antibiotics that start saving people, people's lives.
And killing people too. From another side of it. But it's definitely influence.
The poison and the serum are the same thing, right? The poison and the antidote are always the same thing. That's kind of the story of the whole of humanity. Is like I go back to my Newtonian physics. What goes up must come down. The law of displacement. If there's too much water in the bathtub, it's going to spill out. Cause and effect. All of these things are somehow interrelated too. We can't forget that. That they all have a converse side to it. Alcohol. Fat chicks wouldn't have get laid.
Oh, here comes the comments. Getting hot. Getting hot.
But too much alcohol, no one's getting laid. So
yeah, making people look more attractive since 1920.
So I mean, and
probably
alcohol,
since 20 BC.
Right. Alcohol,
Jesus, bringing it back to Jesus. What's some of his most amazing accomplishments? Walking on water, definitely. That's unprecedented. Number 2,
turning water into wine.
Yeah, you show up at the party. There's only water. People are gonna leave. Yeah. Like for sure, people are gonna leave. And there's this guy's like, hey, just give me 5 minutes. Does his abracadabra. You got a bunch of wine, a bunch of people getting drunk, and it's a merry time. Like even Jesus is like, hey, like you people should drink alcohol because it's fun.
Right, and it just goes back to our substances too, because you would never bring Pepsi to a Coke party. Am I right? Okay. So a little levity there, folks, because in all seriousness, this is way too serious on occasion. But we have had paradigms, then we have paradigm shifts. Those things have progressed to the point where we're sitting here in this living room in San Diego today in order to bring this wild world of invention and wild cards and all that other fun stuff to you guys.
Yeah.
But, when I think about a paradigm shift, I think about things like the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta from Britain, based off some of the France, government type of documents that said, hey, listen, these are rights that humans have. They need to have human rights. So maybe we just put human rights. But the Magna Carta was the paradigm shift.
I don't know enough about the Magna Carta.
Well, Magna Carta was, part of the British Constitution and is based off some of the French concepts, but it's basically just human rights. Right?
When did this come out?
This is probably 1600s or something like that.
That's pretty new.
16 or 1700s. That's pretty new, comparatively speaking. But so this would be a paradigm shift in all, to actually codify that every human being had an inalienable right, that you had a right to a fair trial, that you have a right. This is what the United States Constitution is based on, and what they're basically slandering every day. That kind of stuff is, it created things like that. And then,
how about just America, fuck yeah?
America, fuck yeah. So that goes to nationalism. Nationalism is a new concept, too, relatively. It's just basically flag patriotism. Humans didn't always hold allegiance to a piece of ground, and ground just changed hands so many times, like Spain or Britain or Germany or Constantinople. Only in the most recent 100 years has a flag flying in nationalism.
Longer than that.
They have it goes from tribal to nationalism.
Greece and the Romans and all that.
But Greece was Sparta, right? And like all that other fun stuff.
Yeah, but it's mostly...
It goes from tribal to nationalism, so that's a paradigm shift. It was tribal.
Yeah, there's a difference and there's a gray area that's in between. That's kind of a combination of both. But yeah, that would be a modern day...
No U.S. Constitution without the Magna Carta. No law, which might be good, because maybe law is bad. I mean, think about it.
And does law just become its own thing? Law is probably at least on the board, right?
That is definitely a human concept along the lines of currency.
It's just such a it's such a vague one, right?
I doubt you'd have any law without currency, because most of law is designed to keep currency.
Yeah, they're in bed together.
Yeah, aren't they?
Totally corrupt.
Yeah,
corrupting one another.
Everybody else. But so that, and I think about another atomic bomb. Talk about a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Drop that sucker out there, and that comes from science.
It's way too big for inventions. And to bring it back to mushrooms clouds.
There's some synergy for you. We attack here and here.
The thing that we can't relate to is like the day that it was dropped, and then like on the news that day, a bunch of people were like, "Hey, basically, we just wiped off about 1 million people in the matter of a couple minutes." That never happened up to that point.
And certainly, millions of people have died in conflict, which is one of the 3 ways that humanity takes our greatest setbacks behind plague and famine, is war. But then you take it to the global level. You're like, now you're not just having fights with human beings. You're having fights with the entirety of the Mother Nature, because that basically renders Mother Nature uninhabitable.
I think we kind of lost that relationship. It's not like the Cold War. Like maybe our parents, that fear of like they witnessed
ducking cover under a desk.
Ton of people dying.
Nowadays, Trump wants to drop a bomb on everybody. Everybody says drop the bomb. I think that we've come far enough away from it. They just might do it again, just to have to see how horrific it is. But every once in a while, Mother Nature drops a bomb. I mean, a tsunami off an earthquake, or in Indonesia when that tsunami happened. I mean, there are huge events, force majeure, that happen. But this is a man-made force act of God. So it comes back from Jesus to science to mushrooms, and it all comes out in violence. And maybe war in general should be on this list, because fighting is... There's always a war going on. Everywhere. There's a war outside your window. It's destroying our world. So take the hand of a boy and a girl and walk down the street and sing a happy song to make the world better. Peace on earth, environment, religion, pray to God.
Those are the paradigm shifts that are in this bracket. Going back to paradigm shifts, so another little branch off the medical, because it will probably come back, throw medical back in inventions, but another one off the medical side that I think is more of a paradigm shift than invention is birth control.
I was thinking birth control earlier today. Fantastic.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be ye old condom or diaphragm or the pill or the after pill or the abortion, but it's all of that stuff.
And is that a good thing or a bad thing? I really don't know. I think time will tell. I think we have another terminal bracket 100 years from now. But yeah, birth control is probably a slam dunk. We both take very kindly to birth control.
Right. And I was thinking another paradigm shift would be Dr. James Naismith, who invented putting a peach basket on a big tall post, and he created basketball. And he gave a place for lots of people to waste all their time, right? Playing basketball.
I don't know. Is it higher than foosball?
Foosball.
Or do you just put foosball up there? Foosball or football?
Maybe sports. How about sports? Sports. Recreation, but sports, more importantly, competitive sports. The Olympics.
Fade away.
Almost. Airball, huh? Okay. Well, you can see we're having too much fucking fun.
Pick it back. From downtown.
Pages. Oh! I took out Guy Fawkes. You know? Oh, my God. Harlem Globetrotter. All right, but we digress. We still filming? Still filming.
Still live.
Still live. Okay. How do you like that? Well, look at how easy it is to come up with this, because we started here, and all of this is new.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good conference for.
It's just exponential, the possibilities, but paradigm shifts. Yeah, I mean, think things that have moved the world forward, right? Matt, and we talked about fermentation, which is good because I had wine on there, so perfect.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot, and it's not to say that all these are going to be in the paradigm bracket. You could probably already see there's a lot of crossover. Whenever we get the wild card, there's going to be some wild cards out there.
Yeah, pretty wild.
This discussion is going to continue, but we're probably we probably knocked out a good bit of the teams and honing them down.
And I'm looking at a half-empty glass of rum and coke, so that means we're just about out of time.
Just to wrap this up, like the main players that it's going to have to get worked out is this.
Let's see what's hot and cold.
The religious thing, however that pans out with Jesus,
this is hot.
Super hot. There's going to be like a one at
and would you love to see God versus science in like the Elite Eight or the Final Four? God versus science, right?
Yeah.
And how many things tie into that? Birth control, the atom bomb, fermentation.
I think mushroom's going to be a good mid-seed for me. I don't know.
Mushrooms via alcohol, right? Mushrooms via alcohol.
I still like just fermentation.
We didn't even talk about good old MJ.
Yeah, we haven't.
With the hemper.
I mean, it's a brancher, right? It branches into ropes and getting you high.
Right.
Like multiple. Like, I mean, some of these things that's going to be a predictor if you're going to get in. Like, does just getting high, is that good enough on its own, or do you have to combine the team, make a super team of rope and getting high, and then you can get in the big dance. But right. And then we have this whole little media thing that we call radio, TV, podcast. Something's going to come out of that little smaller segment. Whatever.
I mean, it's groundbreaking to think that now we've moved. What was Morse code or transatlantic cables to moving information with nothing in between it using satellite and airwaves. It still blows my mind. You're getting this via a Wi-Fi signal from an inanimate object to an inanimate object.
Probably listen to it in your car while you're driving, while you're moving, not connecting to anything physical, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. It's pretty much telepathic, right? Telepathy.
Exactly. So you can see that a lot of these things are just fascinating, and you can take it upon yourself to look into any one of these. And we're just spitballing ideas, and we might, really go back to this, but too many people these days rely on these things here to help quell their deep down, their deep down human emotions, because they're so disconnected to this world that we came through. And on a positive tangent, there's a reason why we're allowed and free to get this far in life, in order to drink too much alcohol and then wake up the next morning and binge watch TV on Netflix, is because of all of this stuff over
Absolutely.
here.
Yeah.
And
there's tons of people, probably in our listening, actually a lot of people even in our listening audience. Yeah. Right now, it's probably 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're getting drunk off your mind. You know what? Welcome. Know what? We don't judge anyone.
We don't frown.
I don't care if you're a scientist, religious fanatic, or just a drunk, like listening to this 6 a.m.
Or you can be a teetotaler who never drinks, and that's all good too. Yeah. Because you have a place up here somewhere.
Yes. Your team's going to make it.
We guarantee it. So paradigm shifts. Paradigm shifts. Electing, clowns to government, maybe. Democracy was a big paradigm shift. This whole thing. And it was right from the beginning. It's just like the Death Star in Star Wars. It had a fatal flaw, an Achilles heel. And the thing about Achilles heel comes back from like Roman gods and this and all this stuff. All of our language is so intertwined with all of this stuff because we've all just progressed along with it. Nothing happens in a vacuum. All of these things are intertwined. Corn and cigarettes.
When you
can't say corn and cigarettes without cancer. I mean, corn, cigarettes, cancer. That's the American way, right?
And when you put it that way, it's ridiculous to even try to separate them out and segregate them. But it needs to be done.
It needs to be done. And we're the men for the job. You know why? Because we took it upon ourselves to take our Saturday and do this.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. For your enjoyment. Actually, for really my enjoyment. But I know it's such a great topic. And just compelling that, like, who wouldn't want to see, like you said before, who's not going to want to see Jesus and science? I don't even, Jesus and currency, like, in the round of 32?
Right, yeah.
Compelling. Like,
who shall inherit the earth?
The one thing that we didn't bring up, we can bring it up now.
Bring it up now.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how, maybe this will be a little teaser too, but just like anything in life, nothing is just completely linear. We can start breaking down things and predict them at higher and higher levels, but a lot of this stuff just came out of nowhere. So during this tournament, there's going to be some injuries going on. We'll probably get into this a little bit more whenever we get down, but there's going to be some injuries, and like if currency like loses like physical value from the number one team player. You know what? They might lose in the first round.
Take it off the gold standard and your currency's worth nothing. It devalues, inflation, deflation. That's an injury.
Yeah.
It's like playing Monopoly. You pull the card and say bank error in your favor. Oh, sorry, you owe the bank $35. That could really hinder. So if you think currency is a sure thing, don't count your chickens before they're hatched.
Absolutely. Hashtag mankind madness. And it does have a human element. Unpredictable, most of the time predictable, but it's always at some point unpredictable.
And think about that. This is all in the guise of a basketball tournament. So it's not life and death per se, but you live by the 3, you die by the 3. You know, the 5th seed usually gets taken out by the 12th seed in this tournament. You know, at
There's
least
going to be
once,
some upsides,
you know?
for sure.
But a 1 is never lost to a 16, not once. So you think about that, and you say, could this be?
This might be the one tournament that it happens.
Right.
There's a couple. There's a couple out there.
Right.
They're not paradigm shifters. They're probably more wild cards. But there's a couple out there that I can think of that is going to give a number 1 for the run for its money.
I just think about people like, you know, ye old frat boys. Like, alcohol is number 1, man. Or, you know, the Bible beater. Jesus is number 1. You know, like, or like, you know, the LGBT community who think birth control is
right
number
there.
1.
We just got a lot of hate from all of those comments.
Yeah.
But they had to be said, right? Because, I mean, the reality is we're two 40-year-old white guys.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
white privilege. We got to put that
number
up there,
1.
man.
Like, we can't get rid of probably who we are. We just probably totally screwed up the podcast. Like, we can edit this out. Like, I don't know. We'll come back to this. We'll decide if we have to edit it out. Right. But we're here to try to. We're conversation starters.
You must respect the
It's not. It's more of a process than who wins at the end. Everyone's going to remember this tournament.
It's the debate.
But no one's going to probably remember the winner. Because whoever's in that winning category, everyone's going to be like, yeah, I fucking knew. It's most likely going to be. But you're going to remember this whole conversation that we all get to absorb, enjoy, and
waste your time doing. But it's thought
this is not a waste of time.
No, waste their time. I mean,
waste
our time.
I'm sure
it's thought provoking.
Yeah,
and eventually we'll give you guys a chance to chime in and tell us.
They can chime in.
Absolute fools
down at the bottom of the YouTube comments. Or wherever you downloaded this podcast,
right?
Put your
email,
2
Facebook,
cents.
Twitter, Instagram. It'll all be there.
Put your 2 cents there, or send 2 cents to us, and we'll put that in the money for the winner. 2 cents is all it takes.
Yeah, 2 pennies. Right there, dead man's eyes.
Yeah,
you can see the truth. All right, well, you know, this has been a really good inaugural effort. I think you guys see that we have too much to take a bite out of. A big sandwich. It's a shit sandwich. We're going to take a giant bite out of it. And just like a mushroom, we're going to keep you in the dark and shit on you guys.
Spawn new life and bring light.
It'll spawn new life, too.
So, after these brief moments and a word from our sponsors, we'll be back.
Yeah.